Hello, friends. How are you all? This is Abid here again. So I have decided to make presentations as well. I thought that by doing this or by doing so, it might be easy for the students to completely understand the concepts of political science and international relations. So I'm back here again after, I guess, a break of 6 months. Today we are going to talk about some basic concepts of political science. Actually, we are going to talk about the meaning of political science, the nature of political science, and other things. So in this video, we will talk about all these concepts and so that it will be easy for the students to actually comprehend all these basic concepts. So let's start. So first of all we need to know is the meaning of political science. Look, everything in this life, everything in this world has some sort of meaning. So does political science. So today we are going to talk about the meaning of political science. Actually, political science comprises of two words, political and science. The term politics, see, I'm not talking about the term here, political term or something which is political. I'm talking about the term politics. Actually, the term politics is derived from the Greek word polis, which means states. It's actually a generalized I'm sorry, it's actually a generalized form of political organization that was existing in the ancient Greece. So this is the meaning of politics, not political science. So now let's move to science. So look, we need to know what science is actually. Science is actually the systematic study of structure and behavior of physical and natural world through observation, evidence, and experiment. What does that mean? That means that if you want to do a systematic study of any structure or any behavior which exists in a physical or in a natural world, we have to do some sort of observation, we have to do some sort, there has to be some sort of evidence, and we have to make some sort of experiments there. So science is actually it's actually the study of different structures. It's actually the study of different behaviors which are existing in the physical and natural world. We do this study through observation, evidence, and experiment. When we do these observations through observation, evidence, and experiment, we call that phenomena as science. So moving to political science is actually a branch of social science, or in other words, you can say that political science is actually a branch of knowledge which deals with the systematic study of structure and behavior of state. See, in science, we said that science deals with the study of structure and behavior of any physical or any natural world. In political science, we say that science deals with, or political science rather deals with the study and structure or study of the structure and behavior of states and other political institutions. But these study or this type of study is done through scientific analysis. When we say that this study is done through scientific analysis, that means this study has to be done through observation, it has to be done through experiment, there has to be some sort of evidence to it. So this is actually the meaning of political science. Now if we go into the detail, we see that the great philosopher Aristotle was the first. He was the first person to use the term politics, and therefore he is regarded as the father of political science. So father of political science is considered to be Aristotle. Aristotle is the father of political science because he was the first person to use the term politics. So actually he wrote a very famous book, Politics, and in this book Aristotle talked and he says that man is by nature a political animal. See, this is a very important point here. Aristotle says that man is by nature a political animal, and he who by nature and not by mere accident is without a state is either above humanity or below it. Here Aristotle actually tries to tell us that a person who doesn't, where there is no, for example, if a person is without a state, if a person is without a nation, if a person is without a government, or if a person doesn't take part in any sort of political organization or any sort of political phenomena, then that person is either above humanity or below it. That then Aristotle says that that person might be God, in other words we can say. So moving now, this thing, the thing that we talked about, the meaning of political science, I hope it's clear to you. Now, in this part of the presentation, we will talk about different definitions of political science. See, different definitions have been given by different political thinkers. These definitions have been divided into two parts. The first part is traditional definitions. I mean, there are some traditional definitions of political science, then there are some modern definitions. First, we will look at the traditional form of definitions or traditional definitions that have been given or provided by various political thinkers. So these early definitions of political science actually or basically focused on state and government. So the traditional definitions of political science were actually focusing on the traditional, actually they were focusing on only state and government. So there was no other political institutions were added in these definitions. So in other words, we can say that traditional definitions mainly focused on the state and the government. According to Paul Janet, political science is that part of social science which treats the foundations of the state and the principles of government. So if we look at the definition given by Paul Janet, it's very clear that Paul Janet actually talks about the state and government. So here the focus of this definition, here the meaning of this definition is actually about the state and the government. There is nothing has been talked about other political institutions. There has been no discussion, no definition of any other political institution. So Paul Janet's political definition of political science is completely a traditional definition of political science because it mainly focuses on state and government. Now, if we see what Dr. Garner has to say, according to Garner, Garner says that political science begins and ends with state. See, this is a very big thing to remember here. So Garner can be considered as a person who focuses or who has given the traditional definition of political science. So according to Dr. Garner, political science begins with state and ends with state. That means that state is the main component or main part of political science. In other words, we can say that without state, political science is nothing according to traditional definitions of political science. Now moving forward, we will look what Sir John Seeley has to say about political science, how he defines political science. According to Sir John Seeley, political science investigates the phenomena of government as political economy deals with wealth, biology with life, algebra with numbers, and geometry with spaces and magnitude. So it's very clear that Sir John Seeley also focuses or also defines political science through a very traditional way. Sir John Seeley actually says that political science investigates the phenomena of government. So Sir John Seeley actually says that political science deals with government. Dr. Garner says that political science deals with state. Sir John Seeley says that political science actually deals with the government or investigates different phenomena that are prevailing in the government. Okay. Now let's move forward. So these are the definitions of political science. Now there are modern definitions of political science. See, we saw that the traditional definitions of political science mainly focused on the state and government. We will see now the modern definitions of political science, what they focus on. In the beginning of the 20th century, they developed a new way of looking at political science. This new approach is known as behavioral approach. Okay, the main thrust of this new view is the treatment of politics as an activity and a process. See, this is a very important thing to remember. In behavioral approach, when the behavior revolution started in political science, a lot of different things changed in political science. The way political science was looked, the narrative or the perception of that thing actually changed. Okay, so Laswell, actually Hall Laswell will see different definitions of political science given by modern political thinkers or modern definitions of political thinkers. Hall Laswell says that political science or politics is the study of shaping and sharing of power. So you can clearly see the difference between traditional definitions of political science and modern definitions of political science. Traditional definitions of political science mainly focused on the state and government. Modern definitions of political science are somehow focusing on power. There is a concept of power politics which you might study in future in international politics as well. International politics is also known as power politics, by the way. Anyway, Now let's move. We'll see what other political scientist or political thinker has to say. David Easton says that politics is the authoritative allocation of values. See, this definition is completely different from the traditional definition. Okay. Now we'll look at what Andrew Haywood has to say about the modern definition of politics, or how he thinks what politics or political science is in this modern era. So he says that politics can be defined as an activity through which people make, preserve, and amend the general rules under which they live. So the definition of Andrew Haywood is also different from the traditional definitions of political science. So we can say that these new or modern definitions add some different political institutions to the definition of political science. Okay, this was all about political science, and we talked about the meaning of political science. Then we talked about different definitions of political science. Now we will see the difference between politics and political science. This is a very important thing to remember. Most of the students actually make mistakes while defining or while explaining or while knowing politics and political science. These are actually completely two different concepts. We say that modern writers make a distinction between politics and so those modern political thinkers or modern scholars, they actually differentiate politics and political science. Okay, it was Frederick Pollock. He was the first person. He for the first time broke the subject into two parts. It was Frederick Pollock who divided politics, or who separated politics from political science. He said, hey, politics is something else and political science is something else. Don't combine these two terms. These two terms are completely different from each other. So he talked about theoretical politics and practical politics, or in other terms we call it applied politics. So the term politics actually refers to the state affairs of a country. See, this is the very important point to remember here. The term politics refers to the state of affairs of a country, including the structure of its government and the decisions taken by the ruling party. So this is all what we call politics. So politics is actually the state affairs of a country, how the state runs, which decisions does the ruling party take, what treaties does the ruling party make with other countries, and all these things. So politics is actually the affairs of the country or the affairs of a state. Now moving to the term political science, when we talk about political science, we say the term political science refers to the theoretical analysis of all political systems. So political science is actually a theoretical analysis of all political systems, including their origins, their underlying values, and their goals. Now we can say that politics and political science are completely two different things, two different terms. I hope you guys today were able to understand at least what's the meaning of political science, what are different definitions of political science, and what's the difference between political science and politics. I will see you in another video. We'll talk about different concepts. Till then, take care. Have a good day. Bye bye.